From green stalks and other vertical gardens to potatoes growing only in hay to gigantic beds of sweet potatoes, we have a lot going on here at Guten Gardening. Guten Gardening, everybody! Well, I'm surrounded by some pretty lush greenery, and we actually just had our first rain in a couple of weeks last evening, and we're expecting some more over the next couple of days, which these plants I know are very happy about. But today I want to take you on a nice full garden tour. I've already given you a tour of our front yard and space, but I'll give you a few updates there, and then we'll walk around and see what's growing here at the beginning of July at Guten Gardening. One thing I haven't shown you yet this year is our 3-in-1 apple tree, and last year we got, I think, a grand total of 3 apples that ripened up, but this year, which is year number 3, we have far more apples on here. It doesn't actually look like every variety is producing apples. In fact, it looks to me like only 2 of the varieties, because this is one here, and it's only got a couple on here, and this one. But it looks to me like 2 out of the 3 varieties are producing apples already this year. Now, I've already given you a nice overview of our front yard and space, but I do want to show you a couple of things that have developed since the last time we were out here. Our peppers, and these are mostly some really nice frying peppers, but they are coming along really nicely. This space is supposed to be a pretty big producer since we have about a dozen plants in here, and they are performing nicely. I just came out yesterday and fed them, just to keep them going before the rain came along. And our dwarf okra, as you can see, is also developing nicely. I transplanted a large number of them because we had planted them 2 or 3 beside each other, and so now this whole bed is filled up with these dwarf okra. And you can see we've started to get some of those nice mature leaves on here, which should mean they're taking off pretty quickly. And here you see the gift that nobody wants, that keeps on giving. This is our strawberry spinach that comes back years later after we have stopped planting it. I'll take these off now before the seeds start spreading and we get even more of those. By the way, this berry is the reason why most people plant the strawberry spinach, but the taste is pretty plain, and given the fact that, I mean, it's not bad, but the fact that it spreads everywhere, yeah, we're not planting this ever again. Now you can go back to our video on our full front yard and tour if you want to see more about this, but I do want to show you one more thing here in our GreenStalk. So we're growing some sweet potatoes in our GreenStalk outdoors. You can see they're actually looking pretty nice, nice deep green, more leaves are developing. But here at the top tier, we have a summer squash. This is a zucchini, and if we come in here really nice and close, you can see 1, 2, there's a third one right there, 3 zucchini, and there's another one, tiny baby one in here, and there's more underneath here. They are packed into the top of this GreenStalk. So this is a standard GreenStalk, these 10-inch tiers. We never tried growing summer squash in here before, and this one actually volunteered, so we didn't even plant it in here, but we're glad it's here. All right, let's walk in the direction of a bed I haven't shown you yet this year, and stop by one of our other GreenStalks and grab a nice little tasty treat to continue the day. All right, as we head back in this direction, take a look at our peach tree, which is about 15 feet tall now. Should be about as tall as this one's going to get. We did see some blossoms and a few peaches that fell off this year, so I'm not sure if we're gonna get any production, maybe up top. But here's what happens when you don't trim back, when you don't prune your grapevines. This trellis is invisible. Here, I have to actually duck to get underneath this. And while we definitely need to come in here and prune this back, it just provides this amazing canopy. In fact, here I am right in the middle of this canopy. There's actually a bird's nest up top here of a mourning dove, but you can see all around me, there are so many grapes in here. I can't wait to see what the next couple of weeks hold for these, because I think they're really gonna develop nicely. All right, we are down by our bed that we've used in the past for potatoes. We've used it for winter squash, and this season we are growing a massive, what we hope to be a massive amount of sweet potatoes in here. So we've planted 4 different varieties of sweet potatoes. We've got our Beauregard, Georgia Jet, Vardaman, and Centennial sweet potatoes in here. Now our first 2 varieties here, which are our Centennial and our Beauregard, seem to be growing the best so far. But down at the end near our Ruth Stout potato bed, which you can see right there, we've got some of these Vardaman, which are a bush variety. So the other ones are vining type sweet potatoes. This is a bush type sweet potato. And this happens to be the smallest part of our walkway here for us to get through. So that's why we planted the bush variety down at the end here. And all along this bed, we planted some peppers, and these are some more of those frying peppers. So we planted and we've got a total of about 22 of those pepper plants because we have it on both sides of the bed. And we're trying to take advantage of the top space since the sweet potatoes, yeah, they're gonna spread out and they're gonna take up plenty of space here, but they're growing below surface, so we want some of this space to be used with vegetables that are growing above. And in addition to what we've grown so far, you see along the middle here, we have these posts that we use for trellising our winter squash last year, and I've taken some of this metal wire and I've just strung it the whole way along in 2 layers. And the reason we've done that is because we also have some tomatoes that are growing along at each post. So this is a trophy tomato. This is an old German tomato. So you can see we're trying for a nice variety of tomatoes. Here's our Kellogg's breakfast tomato, a nice juicy watermelon tomato. You can see the leaves on the watermelon tomato look different, I think, than the leaves on our other tomatoes. And then our 5th variety of tomato right down here is our Brandywine tomato. By the way, we're using these stones with some permanent marker on there to save our spots. And so far they've been doing a pretty good job of maintaining the marker. And right along here we have our Ruth Stout potato bed. We've got 4 different varieties of potatoes growing in here. And you're gonna notice that I have my traps along the side to help with our vole issue. And we also have some of this hardware cloth in here that goes all along the underside. And then I've folded it up about 4 inches high on the side. So far I've caught a couple of voles around here, but we're trying to keep them away from our potatoes. Like last year we had over 50 pounds of potatoes that we harvested out of here. There was also a ton of vole damage. So this is the next step for us in trying to keep those voles out. You can see the development of these potatoes. We probably got about 12 inches, I would say, of height for most of these, and they're coming along nicely, although we're not quite to the flowering stage. Remember, we got a bit of a late start to just about everything here due to some unseasonable cold streak. Now, our initial plan was to start all of our own vegetables from seeds, but unfortunately we weren't able to do that this season. We started a lot of our plants from our own seeds, but we did buy a few of the plants that we planted here. You can see these are some of our Jade Cross Brussels sprouts. They've been in the ground for about 3 weeks, and you can see they're starting to take off nicely. Minimal bug damage, I would say, so far. We also decided to grow some cauliflower back here in this area where we haven't grown cauliflower before. This is some what's called amazing cauliflower. I guess we'll be the judge of that in a couple of weeks. And then we have some KK Cross cabbage here as well. So we've got about 5 or 6 of each of these growing in this spot, and this is in our main garden area. For those of you who haven't seen our garden before, our full main garden before, we've got about 240, maybe 250 square feet of growing space. And we've used these trellises, which are very easy to build, and they've lasted us. Now we're in year 3 for some of these, but we use these trellises for our beans, our pole beans. We've used them for our cucumbers, and actually that's exactly what we have growing here. In the middle, we have some of our pole beans coming in. And we can also use this trellising for some of our tomatoes. Our indeterminate tomatoes work just fine growing up along this trellising. Here are a couple other ones that we're growing. So this is a vintage wine tomato. This is a Kellogg's breakfast tomato. Most of these are varieties we've never even tried to grow before. And what I would say, here's a watermelon tomato, is that when you experiment like this and try a bunch of different varieties, it's pretty easy to determine, here's a trophy tomato, pretty easy to determine which ones of these are going to perform best for you in the future. And there's another old German tomato. Now here's our second set of brassicas, and I don't know about you, but we love growing our brassicas in here. Most of them are pretty easy to use in terms of long-term storage, so that's a big deal to me. We have some Ruby Perfection cabbage. Again, these we didn't start from seed, although we have some other cabbage seedlings right now that are going to go in for our fall garden. Some Pac-Man broccoli, some Stonehead cabbage, along with some more KK Cross cabbage. And then we get down to our kale. Our kale this year is Black Magic, which looks like that lacinato kale, that dinosaur kale. And then we have some of our prism kale, which is, my wife likes the lacinato kale the best in our smoothies. I really like this black prism kale. Let's take a look at some of the other varieties we have here. This is a Wisconsin 55. tomato. This is a beefsteak tomato. Here we have one of our Brandywine red tomatoes. Here's a white cherry tomato. And this last tomato here is an evergreen tomato that when it ripens is still a nice green color. Now here in the back of our house, in addition to some of the weeds that I have to take care of in here, we have some collard greens. This is Winter. That's the variety of Kohlrabi that we have in here. You can see the base of that Kohlrabi starting to turn into that nice ball form. And here's some more of that Kohlrabi here on the other side, in addition to the collard greens, on the other side of our raspberries. I also put a couple of cucumbers in here because last season the cucumbers did really well in this area, and we give them a little cord to climb up. Now you know I can't pass over these raspberries here without taking a little snack, so let's see what we have in here. These are some of our golden raspberries. These are just now getting ripe. This is my absolute favorite. This is a thornless variety. These are also pretty nice size. Beside that we have a black raspberry, and you can see the transformation. I absolutely love this. You see some of the red still on here, so this one's not quite there. But if I come back a little ways, you can tell they're ripe because they come off so nice and easily. We'll grab a couple of these raspberries right there. Our heritage fall-bearing red raspberries, just now some of them getting ripe. Yep, pluck it right off. Take a look at that. Look at the color difference here. These three varieties of raspberries. And then our other black raspberry, which is absolutely loaded down right now. And these are nice and ripe. I got to come out here a little bit later today and do a nice picking of these raspberries. Take a look at that. And you know what? I passed over these earlier in the tour. Well, I'm not going to do that. When I want a fruit snack, I want to take advantage of the various fruits we have here. And our black currants are ripening up nicely as well. These I don't love the taste of all by themselves, but just for you, a little too tart for me. Much better in a jam. And I'm going to grab the one ripe gooseberry that I see here. You see it starts to turn a little bit of a different color than the other ones. These are going to be really nice here in a couple weeks when they're all ripe. And so on top of this really nice snack handful here, I'm going to grab a little bit of volunteer borage to get some of that cucumber taste as well. That's a nice taste. And that's one way to keep your energy up when you're on one of these really difficult tours. On the back of our bed, we have a couple of hundred onion plants that we started from starts this year. And you can see they are going nicely. It's probably about time that we're going to clip off the ends of these. Then we'll dehydrate the ends and use these either in soups or as a powder. But a large number of these, well, you can see, let's come down here. They're really starting to get a nice bulb on them. We found that we like to start them much more from starts instead of sets, because then we don't get nearly as much of them going to seed, which creates a really small onion as a result. Take a look at this one. Look at that beauty down in there. So we're going to have plenty of onions this season, and also along the backside here, volunteer tomatoes. Now I did show you that we have that massive bed of sweet potatoes, but that's not the only sweet potatoes we're growing, of course, this year. Sweet potatoes are one of our absolute favorites. So in addition to growing them in that bed, we have hay bale sweet potatoes growing. We have these black plastic, food-safe plastic containers of sweet potatoes growing throughout our garden growing. And we have this really nice bed, this 3x6 bed of our purple Stokes variety of sweet potatoes. And we did a video on how we planted these, and one of the questions that came up from that planting was, because I took them directly from the sweet potato, I didn't give them any time to root at all, and a question that came up was, well, can you do that? And take a look at the quality of these slips right now, and I'll say the answer to that is yes. Now we're over in an area of our garden that we call Compost Row, and that's because a large number of compost beds are right up here, and we're growing on top of those as well, as we always do. But down here we have different varieties of tomatoes, and rather than explaining each one of those to you, I'm going to just put a list of those tomato varieties that we have on the screen right now. As I said, in our compost row area, we always grow and always garden on top of our compost. Here we have some watermelons, a couple of different varieties, and some peppers. These are more of our peppers. I can't tell you enough how we really want to make sure we have plenty of peppers this winter. And then we have a couple of eggplant that volunteered, and we transplanted them over. And this is the bed where we're doing our modified Ruth Stout potatoes. You can see in here we've got a good bit of hay, spoiled hay on top. We've mounded them as best we could, and they are taking off. I'm telling you, these plants love growing in our compost. And here is our main potato bed this year. In years past, we've used this bed just for sweet potatoes, but you can see I've gone through and I've mounded all of these potatoes, but that rain, seems like that rain added another inch or two to their growth. But we have 5 different varieties of potatoes growing in here. I can't wait for this to start developing flowers. I think this keyhole bed is going to be a really nice site for you. Now this vertical garden is made out of a gigantic tomato cage, some burlap, and hay inside. And I asked the question when I planted this, what would Ruth Stout do if she wanted to vertical garden? I'm not actually sure that this is what she would choose, because this did take some work and she was kind of averse to doing anything extra. But you can see we have some sweet potatoes growing at the base of this bed, and we have some nice potatoes coming out of the sides and here at the top. So it's a multi-layer bed. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments as to how you think this is all going to turn out. This is our first time trying this. Here is our GreenStalk, where we're repeating the experiment we tried last year with a different variety of potatoes. You can see we've planted some potatoes all along, and they're just now starting to come out. You can see they're just now sprouting out of here. So pretty soon this GreenStalk is going to be packed. Here we have another one of our GreenStalks where we're growing some strawberries. Lots and lots of strawberries. You don't want to leave these strawberries on here too long. You need to come out here and eat them before the birds do. And believe me, the birds will come for them. But ooh, that's sweet. Now I have to tell you something. I am skipping a couple spots in the garden because I don't want to show you everything quite yet, but I will show you these nice raised beds that we have. These are our long raised beds, is what we call them, that I built 2 years ago. And in here we have tomatoes and sweet potatoes growing. And as these tomatoes start to take off, we're going to add some more planting here in the front. I also came along and I put some of these Calypso cucumbers. These are also ones that we purchased in here alongside so that they can take advantage of this trellis, which is about 4 feet in height. In our patio garden, and I'll show you just a couple of plants here, we have some habaneros growing. This is our first time growing habaneros. I'm the only one in the family that likes spicy peppers, I think. And here's our jalapenos. If you have some advice for us for growing these peppers, making sure they're nice and spicy, we would love to hear about that. All right, here's the last thing I'm going to show you in our tour today. These are our other 2 vertical towers that we built. Now, unlike the one where we're growing potatoes and sweet potatoes, these have a food-safe black plastic around the outside, but they still have that wire, and this is that concrete mesh, that wire inside. And we're growing in here sweet potatoes, we have pepper in here, and we have some cucumber. And if I bring you down here, you can see that there are some flowers on our cucumber already. You can see that the color, I'll show you this one as an example, the color of this sweet potato leaf is a little bit light. And I think part of that is the hay that's in here, because that's what we got in here, is just hay. I think the hay that's in here is still decomposing a little bit. And I'll bring you over to the other one so you can see inside here as well. What that means is that I've had to come in, because it's really feeding on that nitrogen to decompose, to break down. I've had to come in here and feed it some fish emulsion and really give it more nitrogen than we normally would for our sweet potatoes. But these are looking pretty nice. Here's another one of our pepper plants growing right in here. And this cucumber is about to explode with growth. Got lots and lots. Well, there you go, folks. There's a lot more out here that I could show you, but that's all I have time for today. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at our garden, or at the bigger part of our garden. We have plenty more surprises coming your way, lots of experiments, and some pretty cool updates coming your way in the near future. If you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.